whatever reason, but we did a little bit of good writing. But then, well, we're about to mic it. All right. Okay, so then after that, a couple like a year or two passed, and then Davina and I. So here's the real confession. Davina and I have been writing partners. We're writing partners, write together some for 35 years. So, but not a great completion story. So we met in sophomore year in high school, in French class, or freshman year in French class, and started writing together sophomore year. So I eventually asked her to join, knowing that she, was a great writer too. So that was the first three. And then after that, at BasedCon a couple of years ago, talked to Debbie, met Debbie for the first time. Thought she was a great, vibrant person, as you guys saw in the readings yesterday. She was lots of fun to talk to. I mentioned the writing group, yeah. And said, "Hey, maybe I think Debbie actually proposed it. Can I join?" And I said, "Well, hey, why don't you try it out? We'll do like one of those speed dating things." And we're still trying to work out the rules of this thing, because everybody in this room who's an author knows writing is like a lonely enterprise, and most of us do it all on our own all the time. But we're going to talk about this a little bit more as we go along. But writing group has its benefits. It has its drawbacks too, but it has its benefits. So, and then last but not least, Eric, the newest member of the group, had just mentioned to me a few years before this, "Hey, I wrote a book." Like, I think we were talking about this a few nights ago. Like, just randomly he said, "Oh yeah," I said, "What's been going on with you, Eric?" He's like, "Oh, I finished a book." I was like, "Oh really?" But I filed it away, and eventually asked him to join. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add about the story of the group.
Well, my question is, what convinced you all to join? Like, what was the motivation, or why did you go ahead and say yes when you joined?
I think for me, at that first BasedCon 3 years ago, it was hearing that you guys had this group and that you met regularly, like really reliably, regularly, and that you were all writers and that you were willing to give this space to one another. It's like, I didn't even know that kind of thing existed. And I thought this would be just amazing. But it was one of those, I wouldn't want to belong to any group that would have me. So I was very nervous about asking to join the group because, as you know, this BasedCon attracts some very high caliber writers. And so I didn't know whether I would meet their standards or not, but just knowing that there was a group that was willing to take that step and look at each other's work and help each other along it was like I had died and gone to heaven.
I just feel like, my abilities, I have the ability to write a lot, but I just knew I didn't have the ability to complete something, and certainly not to bring something to print. So I knew I was going to need help with that.
So, find your tribe. The advice is sit next to them in high school. That's probably the least helpful advice. But just put a call out on social media. Hey, are any of my friends writers? Would you be interested in workshopping together, putting that feeler out? BasedCon, this is a great place. If you connect with somebody and you're interested in starting a group, maybe ask them.
Is anyone here interested in a writing group?
Stop.
Think about it. At the end, I'm going to ask you all to raise your hands, and you guys can find each other. So if you're embarrassed to look for someone, we'll make like a minute at the end. You guys can actually set something up right here, because we're really lucky that Debbie's in our group, and it wouldn't have happened without BasedCon.
No, that's a great idea. Do a little speed dating at the end. Okay, so once you've found your tribe, pick and protect your time. So we meet on Tuesdays. Right, because we're all in different states. So we meet by Zoom.
So when we started, I was working for the State Department at the time. I lived in Africa. And so when it was Davina, Chad, and I, for the first while, it was really wild. Like, they were meeting in the mornings, and for me, it was in the evening. So we just found a time, and we did it through Skype. And now we use Zoom. But it's always through online somehow communication, teleconferencing.
So obviously, if you find people in your area, pick a place and pick a time that works for your all schedule. So we meet on Tuesday evenings in various time zones, but Tuesday evenings for anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours. We'll talk more about why so long. It started out at a strong hour. Like we went for an hour consistently for a while. But I don't think the when and where is as important, other than you're accommodating your people. But what's more important is protecting that dedicated time. So how would one of you want to talk about how you protect that time?
Yeah, so I am father of 3 children. My oldest is 17, and then I have a daughter, a son, and then a daughter who is about to be 11, like in 5 minutes. So anyway, so my family all knows that Tuesdays at 9 is the time that I'm going to be doing this call, and I travel a lot for business, so I make it a point to, if I'm at a dinner, usually I can get away. It's 9 p.m. Central, which is a nice time. It's bad for Debbie, who's on the East Coast, because we always joke she's turning into a pumpkin, but it is something that like all of us prioritize. When Davina says protect it, we really do. And, we enjoy each other's company, so it's not like it's a chore.
So same thing. I have 4 kids. They all know Tuesday nights. In fact, other things have come up where I just I can't do any other things on Tuesday nights because I know I've set this aside, and that's our time for writing. And even when traveling, same thing as Chad, I try to get on. And one time, my family was on vacation at Zions National Park, and they had Wi-Fi. We were camping. They had Wi-Fi at like the general store. So I was there on the Wi-Fi, just sitting on a picnic table doing the call. And Chad and Davina are writing this really cool vampire novel. When it comes out, you guys need to read it. It's really good. But I was talking about my comments for that week and describing things about the story. And towards the end of the call, this guy just walks up and says, "Hey, I heard what you're talking about. That sounds like a really cool book. I want to know about it." So he gave me his email address, and I passed it on to them. So like they got their first super fan just from hearing me talk during writing group at this random place in Zions National Park.
I have a much easier time protecting the meeting time. I have a harder time than the rest staying awake for the whole meeting, but we start at 10 o'clock Eastern time on Tuesdays, and I'm still working full time, so the next morning's typically a hard one for me. But it's so critical that protect your time. That's like one of the most important nuggets of genius information from hard-won knowledge that we can share with you guys. It has to be a priority for you. Whatever you do, whether you do it weekly like we do, or you do it every other week or once a month, that has to be something you commit to heart and soul in order to bring everybody forward and help everyone achieve what they're trying to achieve with their writing. So if you take nothing else from this panel, find your tribe, set your time, protect your time.
One more thing on that I just remembered. Our first incarnation of this group, we started like 2016, 2017, went through 2021, but we'd usually just schedule our next week's call on the prior call. And at some one point, we just didn't schedule the next call, and more weeks went by, and pretty soon, like a year and 9 months had gone by, and we hadn't met. So I think it was right at the beginning of the COVID shutdown, I emailed Chad and Davina and said, "Hey, are you guys still writing? Should we start this thing back up?" And then we set up a regular time, and that made it so much easier to keep it going because we know that's the time we're doing it.
Yeah. We slipped once and then it slipped bad. So.
I just have a very supportive wife because she always reminds me, "Hey, your meeting's tonight," so I can never forget about that. But I'm also into pinball machines, and so this is the first. Oh, awesome! So I'm usually at the pinball conventions and stuff like that. But I have pinball tournaments as well. But I never anticipated this happening because the pinball tournament I usually go to is on Tuesday night. But I have, and then I can usually sneak here, and get into the meeting on time with my writing group. But if I'm doing really good and I'm winning, then it kind of bleeds over. So I have intentionally lost my pinball tournaments to make sure I'm on my writing group on time.
Wow. I never knew that. Wow.
Yes. At least that's what I tell them.
He was losing badly. That's why he gave it up.
So pick and protect your time. And it does help to have supportive people in our lives. Like my husband's the same way. We had people ask us out to dinner and he automatically told them no because it was a Tuesday night. he's good about, you know, planning to do other stuff while I'm on my call, so that helps. So find your tribe, pick and protect your time, set ground rules or expectations on what you're there for, your goals, what you want to accomplish, and just practical stuff. So, for example, we were kind of submitting, I think, longer pieces, and we have figured out that 15 pages. Well, so I should back up. We have 2 people submit each week, and each one submits no more than 15 pages. To all of us. And then that's not as much of a burden on the editors or the readers. We're able to get that done and turned around in time for the call. We've also discovered that we need a deadline before the call. Like, we try to make it, what did we decide, Saturday?
Sunday night.
Sunday night at the dead latest, get it turned into the group to give us time to thoughtfully read it and make comments and get it back. And then on the call, we discuss. So that's kind of our modus operandi.
I would just point out to the group that this is more of a workshopping writing group rather than like a first reader or beta reader situation. We are workshopping our fiction. It changes a lot in the process. And great feedback coming. You know, that's something when you say you want to find your tribe, you'll find out pretty quickly whether these are people that are going to be giving you honest, applicable feedback. You know, it's not just, I didn't like it. Oh, this worked for me. You know, everyone in this group is doing good.
And more procedurally, when we will email out like a Word document, and then each person will email back their edits with track changes and comment bubbles. So the person has that stuff written down, and then we'll also talk about it and talk through and explain, our comments and things on the call.
I think one of the things that's interesting about the way that we proceed is that it works for all of us, even though we're coming from very different levels of achievement in what we're writing. So some of us are bringing pieces from a finished novel, for example, and we're just bringing the next few chapters each time that we're up and getting feedback on that. So there's a lot inherent in that feedback. I've finished this novel, right? Now I'm getting in the weeds story and character and plot development feedback from a variety of readers from very different perspectives. And it is inherent upon me to go back and say, what of that needs to be plowed back into my rewrite of this finished novel? In other cases, it's being written on the fly in time for the submission for the next time that you're up. And so we're seeing, sometimes you'll see the same piece back again from the author, having incorporated the feedback from the group, which is also very valuable because it shows what's actionable and what isn't. And it gives us an idea of, are we really getting what the group is giving us back? So we are very much sleeves rolled up, word by word. We're catching even proofreading at the same time. So it's very, very much we're working together on the various pieces.
I'm really scared to say a phrase like diversity is our strength to this group, but I will say that everybody on this up to here has just a totally different mind, and we really do leverage that. So like James always picks up on logistical issues. Like if you have a blocking problem in an action sequence, James is like, actually this character was across the room, Chad. He could have possibly done what you're saying he was doing. Davina's always really great at picking up emotional feedback the character should be having about things happening in the scene. I mean, if something dramatic happens and the person's like, yeah, so whatever, and moves along, it doesn't read right. So Davina's going to let you know that. But everybody has something that they really can, almost consistently bring to the table. And we will joke, about say I have something where it's a logistical problem that I pick up on. Like, hey, as I'm going to be James for a second and say I don't even understand what X, Y, and Z is doing, but that it is truly a strength.
So we have in the remaining time, let's talk about lessons learned, why we do this, sort of the more meat and things that have really been beneficial. How would you guys describe taking constructive criticism? Is it hard? Is it worth it?
Yes and yes.
Okay, next question. No. Like, why do we go through this? Like, why do we put ourselves through this? Or how we even go about giving criticism?
The reason I wanted to start a writing group in the first place is I actually wanted the constructive criticism. I knew I needed to get better, but I didn't quite know how or why, and so I needed feedback from other people reading it. I guess as a lawyer, like a lot of what I do is written stuff, and so you're always getting feedback and criticism from other people. So I guess that doesn't really bother me of getting the criticism, and that's really what I value is hearing other people telling me, and they're always so nice about it. But like they'll give it feedback like this, didn't quite work for me, and that sort of stuff is really helpful to just make it something that's much more readable.
One of the things that about giving and receiving the constructive criticism, it's not always about structure and plot and character and stuff. Sometimes what you get from a writing group is that perspective that the author can never have, and that's the cold reader's perspective. You won't even realize what you've left out, what you've contradicted, what rabbit holes you've ended up going down, and these folks can come in and say, wait a minute, I don't understand. Why would he do that? Didn't you just say in the last? And you don't have that from within your own head. So there's huge value in that.
Yeah, I would say that we are a group. If you, I don't know if anybody else has ever been involved in a writing group or a class or a writing class, etc. But we are a very completion-oriented group. I would not be a part of this group if we weren't actually getting things done. So we have things that, I think Eric's completed a couple of books. I've written a book being involved in this writing group. Davina and I, in our 35-year-old project, we're coming in on the end, is the rumor.
Not a good example.
I know. Yeah, there you go. But it was this writing group that's got us to the point where we are completing the project. So I would say if you all are thinking about getting involved in this, yes, choose your tribe. But if you have that orientation of we are going to complete projects, that's essential.
And that's kind of how we came about the book, the chronologues, which some of you have seen. And we read a couple pieces from there last night. But the skill set, none of us were experienced self-publishing in any way, shape, or form. In the process of moving our novel projects forward, we got to a place where we said, we need something that we can get a completion, we can get across a finish line with. Let's each write a short story. We picked a theme. In our case, the theme was time. And we each wrote and we edited for one another. We responded and replied on our short stories. And then we put them together in the book that we have here at the con. And amazing things came, like Davina does contract writing. That's her side gig, her full-time side gig. And one of her clients, husband is a graphic artist, and he designed our cover for us. James, it turns out, is phenomenal at typesetting and getting all of the meta-analysis, metadata and everything up on Amazon and understanding what the different publishing mechanisms and channels were for us. And so we were so much greater, the sum was so much greater than the individual parts that we did it. We got a book together that reflects all of our voices, and we have it here for you at the con. That is a huge sense of accomplishment, to tag on what Chad said. It's absolutely completion oriented. And writing can be it can languish for 35 years and not get finished unless you have some impetus to get you there. So.
I would also just add on feedback. We do balance negative feedback with positive feedback, and we spend the calls. Yes, people will run through their comments. We send them, send the comments to everybody in the group. Everybody can see what everybody is saying about everybody else. We did notice. I think we're going to get to this in a little bit. Well, I'll get to it now. We tried Google Docs for a while, that we would all share a single document. It would make it easier to integrate the comments later. We found that was counterproductive because we would see what others had put. And so our original take was no longer original. we were, it would color what we were, the feedback we were giving. So we went away from the Google Docs format, but we send, so going back, you know, to the comments themselves, it is like, as writers, again, it's a lonely enterprise to get a little bit of positive feedback from people you respect on an ongoing basis. It is a little bit, what is it, a hit. Yeah, it's like that dopamine hit that I need as a writer. It keeps me going, but we also, you know, you have to be open to the criticism.
And we all really like each other's writing, so I actually look forward to each new installment. I want more. Like, they end in cliffhangers. It's like, well, what's gonna happen next? Come on, you left me hanging. So like, we really enjoy each other's writing, so it's fun to point that out to each other and say, hey, this was really good. I really like this. This is really funny. That
And I think we all have this mindset that just kind of happened organically, but I think this is something to consider when you're starting a group. Is there's no ego here, and there's a lot of humility. There's a desire to learn and grow and get better, and we're all coming to it with that desire. And so, you know, I don't think we have any jealousy, but you have to come in with that mindset that I'm here to take criticism and give it, but in a way that's going to better all of us and make us better. That's one of my favorite things about this group, is that spirit of all of us learning and growing together. And it's not about my book is better than yours, or I didn't get any compliments, or whatever.
There's a little bit of a soft accountability that we have going with each other. So come hell or high water, we're on the call. Does everybody get their work in on Sunday night? No. And I'm not going to point any fingers, but no, it doesn't happen. But if somebody can get it in, say it's, you know, Monday midday, we're all going to try very hard to read it, at least, even if we don't complete the comments for the person. And it is that accountability thing. Some people have it naturally. Probably, you know, a lot of writers in this room, you all are self-motivating. You know, I have it. I would say I'm like 50% there. I need, this group helps me to get that extra zhuzh, as my wife likes to say, the zhuzh I need to get things done.
I had a novel written coming into when I joined the group, so I kind of had, you know, the thing on cruise control where I would just take 15 pages and send it in, and kind of rubbed it in a little bit every time I did. But then when I ran out of that and I had to start writing, it was had to meet a deadline, you know. Yeah.
Not
Well,
necessarily, because
the
we
maximum.
only do two readers, two writers
A week.
a week. So we rotate. So yeah, it's
15 's
not
the
every
max.
week.
so it's every 2 or 3 weeks is how often you're submitting.
So if you have 3 or 4 pages, you know, it might be only 3 or 4 pages too.
That's a critical point too, is sometimes it's just getting something on the page, even if it's like 4 pages. Most everybody gets something to us. And even if it's, I don't feel like writing on my book anymore, I'm going to do a short story that I just had an idea on, we get writing to each other.
And so there is that balance of accountability, but also showing grace. Like if somebody says, hey, I'm traveling that week, or like James was a place, he went camping where there wasn't any Wi-Fi just recently. And so we just switched our schedule around. Somebody else said, oh, I'm comfortable going. He can take my week. You know, or like if we don't get the edits and comments turned in time, you know, we'll say, okay, I'll make sure to have them to you by the end of the week. We still read and are able to talk about the piece on the call. So it's a balance. We're not taskmasters, but yeah.
But that accountability is huge. I've written so much more. My productivity is so much greater knowing that I have to produce something to send to them. It's that little extra push. So it's a huge, huge help. That year and 9 months when we weren't meeting, my productivity was very minimal. And so that was another reason why I was so excited to start it back up again, is so I could have that accountability and know that I have to write.
But the other thing is, it's fun. It's more fun to write because you're getting reader feedback. It's, you know, the thing that we write for.
But how do you connect? Like, are you using like the Slack channel or Discord?
Zoom.
So you're actually doing the
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a weekly call, do over Zoom. We do have a Slack channel that we also communicate on. At least 4 of us do. Somebody doesn't. I don't even know if he gets the messages. But anyway,
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But we communicate over email to schedule the calls, send around the documents, and yes, it is a weekly, and that face-to-face thing is very important too, I would say. And I would just yeah, question.
Most of what we're talking about this year already, but it's one point thing you're saying, and it's not in the very
Yeah.
True.
and so is it, so which is, or is it a mix?
It's both.
Because, you know, myself, and I think everybody was up with the last panel, it's overwhelming to think about all this stuff. You know, you can have a book, go home and like, oh, I got 27 books, I get a book, all publishing, delivery, etc. So we both.
Kind of organically, I'd say yes, we're doing both, and we have, we're so jazzed about the current project that I think we'll do it again, something similar. But you're so right, like having the ability to lean on other people. It's a lonely, again, it's like a theme. It's lonely, but working with other people has been a real boon for me. Yes.
So I just want to know if you are no, and how do you deal with that? You know that someone's emotionally attached to the work, might not know where they're going in the story, but they're following an emotional impulse.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help each other with that? That would stop me from being in a writer's room. I only have a premise and a strong emotion why I want to write it. I don't know this. And it's like, that process takes a long time. I know you're So I think, how do you guys deal with that? Because there's, you sound very analytical, and there's a kind of writing that it's like that, where it's like, I'm looking at data, I'm memorizing it. But most writers that I encounter, their heart is right here, and they don't know how to protect it. So what do you guys do? How do you cross that bridge?
I think that comes back to Davina saying we show each other grace. We know we're safe to bring our work to this group. They
Yeah.
oh no, that's not true. Yeah.
And I think so I'll speak to this because this group has made me cry. Like in a good way. It's a good pain. There's a level of trust that has come with time. So I know these people have my best interest. They want me to be the best writer. I've been attached to some passages that they all hated. And no, not hated, but there was a problem with it. And every single one of them tripped on it. So that tells me there's definitely a problem. And I think we're good at, that's why the face-to-face is so important. You can see the reaction that this is really bugging them, what we're all saying. And they have been very kind about saying, it's not the end of the world. And like helping me brainstorm solutions. Well, you could do this. And that kind of fires me up to be like, well, I have to, there's a phrase, you have to kill your darlings. The thing that you're most precious about sometimes is the thing that has to go, right? And they're good about helping you see that's not the end of the novel. You're not the worst writer ever. Just cut it. And here's some cool stuff you can do instead. We do, like Chad said, we have Slack and we talk through email. We talk outside of the call. So like there's been one time where I felt like maybe Debbie was really discouraged. And so we did a little email exchange. Like I just checked in with her to make sure she was okay. You probably don't even know that I did that for that reason.
I don't. I
Yeah.
didn't. But thank
I was
you.
concerned. So, but I think the level of trust, like it might be hard coming out of the gate, right?
Yeah.
But I think as we learn each other's writing styles and there's a trust that we're wanting to better each person.
I would just add that I get very attached to the projects that are represented up here, but we all remember that they're not ours. It's not mine really. Debbie's work, James' work, it's not mine. It's theirs, and so that my recommendations, my view on how their work is supposed to go, is mine, and that's not my project. So we often will caveat our comments by saying, "Hey, but at the end of the day, this is your choice," and everybody knows that. But I also, like Davina said, we're not going to get this kind of commentary. It's so valuable. We need sort of an objective, because then you're not going down a whole novel without getting any feedback. So that's why it's better.
Yeah,
It's worth it.
I was gonna say, like, there's a difference between the pantsers and the outliners. And so even if you're a pantser who's just kind of writing, seeing where it goes, having feedback and seeing, there might be some structural issue here, while you're in the midst of writing can be really helpful. I mean, even like I kind of have just a very general outline, but the direction changes as I write, and having feedback as I'm writing is actually really useful to see where, hey, maybe, this is a better direction. And then on just accepting feedback and stuff, the end of my story that's in the published book, the original ending was terrible. And they gave great constructive feedback, and hopefully it's better. I think it's better. I think it's much better. And that was really useful to to hear the reactions from them about it. And they were all very nice. They didn't say it was terrible, but it was. And then the other thing is about the trust. Just mechanically, how we do our call, we'll usually spend, just sort of organically, we'll spend the first 15, 30, maybe sometimes 45 minutes just chatting about non-writing stuff. We're diverse in sort of our outlook on writing and things, but we're very aligned, politically and social issues. So we always have lots of interesting things to talk about. And so the fact that, like, our call used to be an hour and it's grown to an hour and a half, 2 hours, the fact that we enjoy each other's company and just like chatting also just helps that, like, it feels very, you're getting feedback from a friend. And so it doesn't feel hurtful if they say something.
So we just have maybe 1-2 minutes left. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you guys would like to share? And then I want to give a chance for some quick questions. Did we hit everything? Do you all have some questions?
Spousal support group. We'll take it under committee.
This would be Debbie's husband. All our spouses can form a support group.
Yeah, and Bob does cameos in the camera, and he'll do like a wave or whatever.
Well,
The spouses are great.
we have come up, here's something that's come out of the group. We have come up with a unique solution. We've got some tech people and some folks that know a lot about guns and weapons. What's our solution for when one of us describes a weapon incorrectly?
This is one I actually stole from the Writing Excuses podcast, which has kind of gone sort of woke. It's not as good as it used to be. But someone suggested that if you don't know a lot about weapons, you just say it's a modified Glock. And then if there's any mistakes, like a firearms expert sees, then they'll think it's really cool. Like, well, that's not right. Well, how is that modified? So then you actually make it really cool for them. So that's our joke. We have several inside jokes about that. Like, if someone doesn't quite work, we'll say, well, just say it was a modified whatever. And then it's okay.
All of our weapons are modified now.
The most important thing in the group, besides all of what you've heard here, is humor. And I think you can see that. Everything we do, we're constantly laughing and cutting up, and I think that's why a spouse group is needed. And Bob, I know, is very jealous of the good times we have. So lots of humor.
Was there a hand I saw in the back earlier?
Not yet.
No,
They're so close.
We're close to being done with the first round. So thank you for asking.
Chad, by the way, he has 2 novels published on Amazon. I'm not sure if you mentioned that. So he's published those on his own. One's called Stung, and the other one's Invasive Species. You guys should check him out. They're both good. Invasive Species was one that went through the whole writing group process.
And James and I will give you a free short story if you sign up for our newsletter. There's stuff by our book that you can grab to do that. Did you have a question? Oh, sorry. We all do our own Word document with track changes. But we thought it'd be helpful to have all the changes on one page, but we were influencing our edits. So yeah, go ahead.
Is there anything else besides modified blocks, or do you have any resources out there for describing weapons?
Well, I think I'm the resource for guns,
Yeah.
pretty much,
Yeah.
and pinball
And
machines.
pinball
Yeah.
machines, yes.
So I help them to unmodify their stuff.
That's true. He does.
Our vampire novel's pretty violent, so we always have to, I feel like we always remind them, no one was actually hurt in the filming of this production, like
But we get
in the writing
attached
of
to
the story.
to characters, and then they kill them off, and it's just awful.
And because we're co-authors, they'll talk about how much they love a character, and then after the call, we'll be like, "Oh no,
No, we can't
know we're
kill
gonna kill him." And we're like, so every time I send it, I'm like, I feel bad for Debbie. I need to give her an apology. I'm gonna do
kill
a
her
terrible
character.
thing to a character she likes. So-
And we use our resident lawyer for all the things that we have that are legal or official law kind of government related verbiage and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
I think that's time. Thank you, Robert, for letting us do this.
Yeah.
Thank
Hold-
you
hold
all
on.
for listening.
One last thing I want to surreptitiously sneak in that I mentioned. That's another inside joke we have, but no, but I did say we are going to have raise hands. Who here
yeah.
wants to get on a writing group? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
And please, so you four go to the back and discuss. Set it up. You have some ideas about how to do it, and if you have questions, we're happy to talk to you about how to work logistics and stuff. So like right now, please, you four stand up. I don't want you guys to miss this opportunity. Go to the back before we end the panel, and you guys can talk
Awesome.
to make sure you guys get this in.
yay.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot, guys.
Thanks.